I want to create a simple explosion effect. So I'm going to go to helpers in Max and choose atmospheric apparatus and create a sphere gizmo like this. So inside that I'm going to have my explosion. Of course I need to render from a 3D view like the perspective or the camera. So to actually create a camera from this view, I'm going to press Ctrl C in my perspective view, and that would give me a camera from that view. Preferably just make it a free camera so that we can enter the X value, say 0, and set the Z rotation also to 0. That way it will be straight facing the explosion. And also I'm going to set these to 0. So now I have it exactly smack in the middle. So of course if I render now I have nothing, and this is best rendered using the scanline renderer, so the normal 3ds Max renderer. That's what you get by default. It will give you the fastest rendering here for this effect. So I'll go to rendering environment and I'll choose add and fire effect. Alright, so here I'll choose pick gizmo and I'll click to add this gizmo within my fire effect, which means that the fire effect will happen within the gizmo. So if I render, I get this so far. To actually speed up my work, I can right click and choose views and active shade. What this will do is give me a preview here. Alright, but actually I'm gonna remove it because that would slow it down instead of speeding it up. So I'll keep it like this and I'll render manually. Alright, the first thing I'll do to make it look more realistic is intensify the fire a bit. So I can grab this color and make it a bit more yellowish. And the flame detail and the flame size are important. So if I decrease the flame size, I will have more detail because every flame is smaller. So basically I'm looking for something that suits my requirement, say like this. And if I decrease the detail, it would get a bit blurry. So a value of 3 is good. I can increase the density to make the fire stronger, but I don't want to do this here because I'm actually going to do it in After Effects. So I'll regain the original value. The higher the samples, the better. The lower the samples, the blurrier the effect is going to be. So let's keep that set to 15. Now, an important thing is the animation. The animation is done here where you have explosion. So I'm going to check explosion and I click on setup explosion because here I specify the start time and the end time. Alright, and I have something called smoke color down here. So if I want my fire to become grayish and then black, I do check smoke. Otherwise, if I uncheck it, it will not pass through this color here. This is the start time of my explosion and that's the end time. So I'm gonna keep it the way it is. The fury, the higher it is, the faster the explosion will burn. I don't really care about it now. I'll keep it set to 1 and I'll render this out. Now the way it should render is render with an alpha channel because I want to keep the transparency of the background. So for that I'm gonna go down to a drive on my hard disk and I'll create a folder and call this, let's say, explosion 1. Alright, and this is where I'm gonna render my animation, and I'm not gonna render it as AVI or QuickTime. I'm actually gonna render it as a sequence of Targa images that will retain the alpha channel. So I'll call this, let's say, explosion and save. And the important thing is to save in 32 bits per pixel and do not check alpha split. Otherwise, if you do, you will get a different file for the alpha channel instead of being embedded within the image, which is something that you want to have. So 32 bits compressed and pre-multiplied alpha. I'll press OK and render. Okay, so here, this is the color of the smoke, really. What I have here, which you can leave, or you can change, or you can uncheck smoke if you don't like it. I left it, so we'll wait for it. 30 seconds to go. $6.40. The most important thing is saving with the proper format. That's the most important thing, which is a format that respects transparency and retains the alpha channel. So I think we're done, so I'm gonna cancel. It doesn't really matter because we would have what we have rendered. We didn't render as AVR or QuickTime, we rendered as a sequence of Targa. So we go back here now, and I'll double click and go to this folder, and I'll select the first one of them and check Targa sequence. Alright, so you have an option to import a sequence. This sequence will be imported as a movie, not as image by image. So the whole thing now, which is around 81 frames, 89 frames, will be imported as a movie, but the advantage is that since they are Targas, they will not lose any quality. They are high quality, and they have the alpha channel. So I'll press open with the Targa sequence, and here I need to guess the alpha channel, so I'll press guess and OK. So if I bring them down here now, it will come without the background, so I will have the explosion going like this. So the first thing we need to do is fix the time. So I'll go to where the explosion should happen, which is around now, and I'll drag the explosion to start at that time. So let's go now. Alright, and let's move it. So we can move it manually or numerically. Alright, now I can't really see the explosion because that's gonna be behind the character. So what I would do here is scale it up a little bit. Preferably render it a bit bigger in max. And move it up so that we can actually see something. And scale it up a bit more. Alright. And before we put it behind the character, we need to apply a glow effect. We apply this to any kind of explosion, fire. So I go to Effect, Stylize, and Glow. And what this will do is make this look better. I play with the values. Now, the smaller the radius, the more detail you're gonna see. And that's the intensity. If you decrease it, it's like removing the glow. Alright, what I would do is add some more, some color correction. So if I click here, I can choose yellow, right? And whenever I do that, I'll be actually mixing that yellow with my original colors. Preferably though, I would add a color correction effect. So I'm gonna go to Effect, Color Correction, and let's try for now Hue, Lightness, Saturation. And what you can do is change the stack of the effect. So I can take the color balance and put it before the glow. And take the glow and reduce it a bit and see what I get. Alright, so what I need to do now is place the explosion below the character and play the animation. Of course, I still need a sound effect to make the whole thing more believable, and then shake the camera whenever the explosion happens. Alright, it's not bad really. But as I told you, a sound effect and a camera shake would make the whole thing much better. Yeah. Alright, so this is how I would composite an animation done in Max with my footage in After Effects.